I think for me, exercise allows me to focus on becoming my best self. Gives me more energy, more personal power. Coupling that with nutrition and sleeping habits and everything else, it allows me to show up into the world as my best self.
Hello, spiritual friends, and welcome to another episode of Life Ascended. I am your host, Cynthia Clark, and I have a very special guest with me today. I am so excited to introduce you to my dear friend and personal trainer. This is Walker Eaton, and he has been a personal trainer for 12 years now. And his company is called Holistic Fitness Fusion. And I am going to bring in some interesting topics today. My goal is to help you understand the parallels between physical fitness and spirituality and how the two actually go hand in hand together. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. Pleasure and honor.
Yeah. And we also have Kona here today because he just he's my Cavalier King Charles, and he just wants to be in somebody's lap pretty much nonstop. So
yeah, he's got to be here.
Yeah, so here he is.
Center of attention.
Yeah, so Walker, let's start off the show, I think, by why don't you just introduce what fitness means to you, and why has it become the center theme of your whole life?
Yeah, it's a tremendous question. A lot to unpack there. I think for me, exercise allows me to focus on becoming my best self. Gives me more energy, more personal power. Coupling that with nutrition and sleeping habits and everything else, it allows me to show up into the world as my best self. And if I have more energy to do that, then I can focus on the things that matter to me, which for me personally is spreading a lot of love and compassion to everybody who I get to meet or interact with throughout the day. If I can be more of a loving, compassionate person and spread that joy and happiness, hopefully I'm leaving a positive impact on this universe. And it's very fulfilling for me personally on a spiritual level. And of course, all those beautiful connections that you get to make along the way and all those experiences. So that's the greater meaning for me. And the bigger motivating factor is just being able to essentially live a fulfilling and healthy life.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. Yeah, I totally agree with you on all of those points. Yeah. So if we were to look at spirituality, and if somebody wants to build a spiritual practice, why would they want to also focus on their fitness? Like, what do you see with that?
Absolutely. Well, I think it wouldn't be an abnormal concept for all of us that the mind, body, spiritual connection is all very much interlaced. So there's kind of those three components that we want to be addressing to become a full being or person. So you have to have those things in balance because they're going to be very complementary towards each other. And I believe personally that the spirituality helps me understand my own purpose in this universe and gives me more of that fulfillment and energy to push into my exercising. The exercise does the inverse of that, and all of that helps my mental and physical capacity as well. So it's all just this kind of synergistic dance that really has to happen for you to become your best self and show up as your best self in this world.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, yeah, I mean, we have to remember that we're living in a physical universe, right? In our third density reality, we have physical bodies, and we have, they often say, your body is your temple, and there's definitely something to be said about that. I feel like it's such an epidemic right now that people are so unhealthy. And do you see in terms of like the overall population, obviously America is where we live, but what do you think is the biggest challenge for people to actually reach their fitness goals? Why do you feel like people are maybe unhealthy, or what is the challenge with that?
Yeah, it's a great question. What comes to mind for me is just the amount of convenience and luxury that we all have these days. Um, I think we're all striving towards how comfortable can we be? How can we get the next biggest thing? And so there's a lot of focus on the materialism, and living a life that doesn't require a lot of challenging things, right? But like when you put yourself in uncomfortable situations, whether that be physically, mentally, whatever it is, you're forced to grow, right? Getting out of that comfort zone is really the only time that we're going to grow and become fitter or learn a hard lesson that we maybe didn't want to really think about. So kind of getting ourselves uncomfortable on purpose. And I think fitness is a really good like avenue for that. Like obviously going through workouts can be very tough. Like
I could attest to that.
yeah, and
Yeah,
it's
for
a
sure.
it's a classic example
Yeah.
of something uncomfortable that might be miserable or painful or whatever at the time, but what blossoms out of that is more health or fitness or just vibrancy, right? So putting yourself in
Yes.
those uncomfortable situations, I think that's mostly like the systemic thing that we're looking at is how we're all trying to like be as comfortable as possible when the irony is like get yourself uncomfortable, like
Yeah, actually love that concept because I often talk to people about their portal of change, which is located right in the center part of the palm, by the way. So all of your hands have, you have 10 portals in your fingerprints, and then you also have one portal in the center part of your palm called the portal of change. And so if we don't change, then essentially we get stagnant, we get stuck, and we don't grow. So it's super important to be comfortable with change, and that includes changes in your fitness level and putting yourself in that sort of discomfort for a little while. It's sort of like when you meditate too, if you've never meditated before, it's really hard for people to focus for more than 30 seconds. We have such a ADHD mentality.
yeah,
It's like, oh, I can't focus. It's like, well, if you do just a little bit of exercise like that can help you to focus.
absolutely.
And it can help you with your meditation. It can help you with, every area of your life, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, something that kind of comes to mind is like you're basically introducing that like stimulus that's far on one side of the spectrum. So like the comfort thing is a biological wiring for us because we all want to be in this like homeostatic space, which means like equilibrium. So if we can just be like equal and balanced all the time, that's where our body feels comfortable and cozy and happy. And that's obviously something to strive for and to experience and to enjoy. But unless we introduce that stress that exercise might be, or that extreme focusing of meditating, that's going to not, if without that stuff, you're not going to introduce something that's maybe going to question that balancing. And so what that does over time is your homeostatic baseline can actually increase. So now your ability to handle more stressful situations or be okay with change or increase your ability to focus in maybe a stressful environment can actually increase. So that's where like introducing those drastic changes and those things far on the spectrum can actually increase your ability to balance and then live that fulfilled kind of happy existence that we're all maybe seeking, which is obviously hard to stay in, definitely maybe impossible.
Yeah,
But
for sure. And that makes me think about, sometimes we push ourselves to the point where we have an accident, or, maybe we twist a knee or something. Like there is that possibility, obviously, when you get into physical fitness, and that actually did happen to me one time. I was skiing, I was in some powder, I was out in the middle of pretty much nowhere in Utah. And there was nobody around. I was in bounds, actually. I wasn't like in a backcountry situation, but I was in bounds. I turned into some avalanche debris.
Oh, wow.
And my ski didn't release like it normally would. And I ended up upside down with my knee really twisted. And it took me about 20 minutes to dig myself out. And I ended up skiing down. So, I mean, that was the positive side of this whole story. But it was so funny because I look back on that whole experience now, and I thought I was going to be completely out for the rest of the season. And this was like late January, early February is the timing of that whole incident. But what it ended up doing was I challenged myself internally.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'm going to see how fast I can heal myself. And I ended up doing some energy work and energy healing. And I ended up healing in 4 days. And I was back on the slopes in 5 days. So, I mean, that was like such an amazing story.
Yeah.
But I know you've had some injuries.
Oh, that's funny. I mean,
I know you've had some pretty
Yeah.
bad injuries.
all the time.
But I want to just talk about this whole concept of when we injure ourselves, that it is actually an opportunity from the universe. The universe is always trying to communicate with us.
Mm.
Okay, so this is what I believe. I believe every illness has an emotional component. Every accident has a reason. There is no, in other words, there are no accidents.
Yeah.
Right?
Everything
So
happens for a reason.
yeah, so if we can look at these, you know, what people would call the twist of fate or whatever, and if we can look at it in a positive way, you know, then like people, like let's take an extreme example, you know, like let's say somebody has a really debilitating accident, you know, and they end up losing their like a leg or something like that could be really devastating. But then what if they end up going and creating something really amazing and inspiring millions of people? Like there's positive ways to respond to any illness or accident, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like you're making the most of your situation, but then you're also freed up like all of this energy that you might have been putting somewhere specific. And it's like, oh, you don't have that outlet anymore. Like now you might have more ability to create or meditate or come up with those concepts. You know, I just hurt my knee. And
Yeah, it's funny we talk about knees.
knee, man.
Yeah.
But you know, and like I was upset naturally for some time, and then I was like, you know what? Like I get to focus on building my business this week. I get to go to more of those meditative yoga sessions that I was really excited to attend. And I got to meet with a lot of friends for like these cute like coffee dates and conversations. And
Nice.
you know, and now I get to like talk to you. And so it just like kind of lifted up my motivation to like extend myself and put more energy towards other things, because like I definitely bias physical activity because that's a big part of my life, but I'm actually personally after more balance all of the time, just like anyone
That's
else,
true.
you know, like while fitness is extremely important, there's also, you want to also show up as your balanced self and, you know, be able to be a complete human, so to speak. So
Well,
these
and
things can kind of give you more of
yeah.
that direction of like, yeah, okay,
yeah,
what am
for
I
sure.
not paying attention to?
Mhm.
Like maybe I need to look at this deeper.
Yeah, and there is such a thing as overtraining,
Yeah,
you know, so that's
absolutely.
another reason why I love working out with Walker is because he knows the boundaries of my potential, but he also knows how to hopefully not injure me in the
Hopefully
process.
We try our best.
Yeah, we do. It does.
Yeah.
It's never 100% foolproof kind of a thing, but I always look at every day is an opportunity to grow and ascend, right? That's why we call this show Life Ascended, because we can ascend in so many different ways. And if we start to reframe the way we think about physical fitness, instead of thinking about it as a punishment, or as like, oh, I have to work out today, or oh, I gotta, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I need to go do something to change that. Instead, if we were more compassionate towards ourselves and more loving, and also more loving towards our attitude towards getting fit, I think that would be a game changer for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think it all starts with your intention. And like to your point, like I think that's a narrative that a lot of us in this country hear over and over again, like that fitness is a punishment, when in my mind it's like it couldn't be farther from a punishment. Like you have this blessing and this ability to use your physical body, and you may not understand how magical that is until it gets taken away. Like tell you hurt your knee, and then you're like, whoa, like
Oh,
I wish I
totally.
could go run. I wish I could squat. I wish I could do those burpees that,
Yeah,
a
for
lot of
sure.
us relate that stuff with the punishment. But I think reshaping things is a very powerful thing, like I've been training so hard for most of my life. And for whatever reason, through that process, I had naturally changed that internal dialogue to basically be, oh, this is an opportunity for you to get better. This is an opportunity for growth. This is where you get to grow as a person and strive towards your goals. So it became like this reshaping thing over more than like 15 years of hard work, that now that stuff never really enters my mind because of the repetitions that I put in. And I think anyone can and should get to that level, and we can basically apply that to our spiritual life, or any other facet. I'm sure, like if there's a negativity surrounding anything, like maybe focusing on how we can put that into more of a positive statement for ourselves, or to move us towards the goals we may have.
Yeah, and that reminds me of when I was a kid. I had asthma as a child.
Oh well, I don't know.
And yeah, so when I was really young, my parents were like, "Oh, you really can't do too much physical fitness, and you really shouldn't play, softball or any of the team sports." Like my parents were really pretty adamant that I didn't do any of those things, even though sometimes I still really wanted to. And then I ended up feeling like I was really, you know, uh, subpar. Like something's wrong with me. I can't breathe, so I can't do this.
Oh.
It was horrible. It was actually really traumatic.
That sounds
Yeah,
tough to get through.
yeah, it was really bad. But this is my point. So if you have something that you hate to do, instead of forcing yourself to make it work, sometimes the universe is just trying to redirect you into something that will work better for you. So for me, when I was a kid and I had asthma, I ended up picking up hacky sack.
Oh, cool.
Which is really kind of not something you would think of, right, for a girl like me.
Pretty niche.
Yeah, it is. But it was so funny after I started doing that, and I did it, just basically by myself, or I actually had a best friend who also did it with me. But we both played independently, so it wasn't like a competitive thing, or it wasn't even a team thing. It was more like, oh, let's count our number, how many did you get? And we both just practiced next to each other. So, but what happened was my asthma went away
Really?
after I started doing hacky sack.
Do you know why? Or do you have any idea?
Yes. Well, I always look at, again, the emotional component behind an illness. So when you have asthma, you're basically saying, I don't deserve to breathe. I don't deserve to. And what is breathing? Breathing is living. So internally, I was actually saying I don't deserve to live, which is really intense and hard for a child. And I had, some past life stuff and some, some childhood stuff to like clear and heal. And, that's the beautiful thing about having a spiritual awareness, is you can look back on those things and you can go, oh, that's why I had that,
Yeah.
And I know it was relating to some of my family and, and it all carries definitely into some past life stuff. So I came into this world to clear that and to heal that. And it was so funny how it just took a pivoting of like, oh, well, here you are standing up for yourself and you're claiming an exercise for yourself. And then suddenly, and this was the really funny thing, I ended up becoming a champion of hacky sack in my high school.
I've heard some of these stories.
And my record was 413, believe it or not. Like, it was unbelievably.
I'd love to watch that. There's like a video out there. Like,
I wish there was a video of me doing that, but
it must have taken like 10 minutes or something.
oh my gosh, at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, so but this is what is possible, right? So it's if there's really something that you hate to do, instead of trying to make yourself like it or do it, it's like, well, maybe there's another kind of exercise that you could do, or this is why we have so many different exercises.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely like a big proponent of doing what you love to do, like whether that be running or biking or snowboarding or climbing. There's so many options. Like if you want to go spend a bunch of time in the gym, great, but like you can get a lot of reward from just physical activity in general. No, there's a lot to uncover there, and we're not going to dive into that right now. But yeah, I think the part of it that's really powerful is the fun, and having the joy that comes from it. Like that's where a lot of that trauma can potentially heal. Maybe it's like just experiencing joy and freedom and liberation instead of the stuff that you were experiencing, maybe of like, oh, I can't breathe, like, oh, I'm not allowed to do these sports because this and that, or people were telling me. Instead, it's like, oh, I get to like get better at hacky sack and improve a skill, and this is really fun, and I'm meeting friends, and I'm doing it from my school, and like that stuff builds a person up in so many more ways than we can imagine. So having something that speaks and is, parallel with your lifestyle and your goals and your joy and your passions, and lining that all up can really bring you into that whole higher frequency.
Yeah, it was really life-changing for me when I picked up hacky sack. And, then I got into skiing.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I was almost 16 when I got into skiing. I grew up in Utah. And my parents, of course, were like, oh, no, you can't do that. That was always their response to anything physical fitness.
Just another pattern that was ingrained in them, right? So they're trying to protect you.
Absolutely. They didn't want me to get hurt. I mean, they had good intentions, but, ultimately my persistence prevailed. And I said, okay, please let me just go try this out. And, so that's what I ended up doing. And I ended up loving skiing, and it became one of my main like sources of fitness and just maintaining my health over many years. So, and I got to travel all over the world. I got to go to all these different mountains. And
that's how you met your husband?
My first husband, actually, that was what drew us together, was skiing. It was kind of funny too, because we went skiing, and he was lowering the bar, like the safety bar. And I was like leaning over and I was fiddling with my boot or something, and he smacks me in the back of my head. And this is before helmets, so nobody was wearing helmets back then. And so I just had a hat on or whatever. And so then I'm like, oh, you owe me dinner now. And that's how we ended up dating.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was a pretty funny story.
Waiting to get hit on the back of the head.
Yeah, I had heard he was a good cook, and I'm like, I want to check out that cooking of yours. So that's how we ended up together. And we were married for 19 years, but what really kept us, like one of the core things that kept us together, was skiing.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that kind of brings something to my mind that may help, some of the listeners. Like I personally have suffered with a lot of like anxiety, social anxiety, and it was hard for me, especially earlier on in my life, to like make friends and like get outside and get out of my comfort zone. And But what really helped me was having physical activity in sports, because that was like a way for me to connect and do healthy activities with people. And then you make your friendships. And so and like in that regard, like that avenue, maybe similar concept of like, oh, meeting my husband or making a bunch of friends and then getting exposed to like a whole nother community that maybe I wouldn't have, because if I didn't do sports, maybe I would just stay inside all day and like be all depressed and not
Yeah,
have any direction, and
that's true.
so I think it can be like a really empowering thing to like follow, okay, what do I want to do? What do I see myself doing? What would make me happy? And then the hard thing is going to do it, right? Because that
Mhm.
we are our best, like we can stop ourselves from doing everything. Like we're our harshest critic, we're our greatest enemy sometimes,
True.
like I did
Mhm.
my first mountain bike race this last weekend, and it was hard for me to want to do it for years because I thought of, well, all the failure that could happen. What if I'm not competitive at that level? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's like all this inner horrible dialogue that we do to ourselves, which is just the ego, and it doesn't really serve us. It's just like these old patterns that are trying to protect us from what, like embarrassment or failure or whatever, and all these things that ironically make us better. And then I went and did the thing, and it was one of the best experiences I've had in my adult life. And I'm like, oh, that I should have done that way earlier. Like this is so empowering, and it gives me direction and drive, and it gives my training more of a reason and all these things. So, the point that I'm all, like just trying to make is that, getting out of your comfort zone, doing those things that deep down that you would want to do for yourself, like that would be really fulfilling, but you stop yourself. And so you have to like get out of that, like, and just kind of sometimes make that like hard decision of like, I'm gonna sign for this race. Whatever
Mhm.
happens, like I'm fine. Like I might fail, I mean, it might go catastrophically wrong, but embrace that as an opportunity. That failure is going to teach you something. It might
Definitely.
bring up something like you might get hurt, your knee might hurt. Oh, well, it might force you to talk to more people and get on podcasts and stuff. So
That's true. There's a good thing to everything.
good things to everything.
Yeah. I want to also talk a little bit about the importance of your profession, because I do feel like there's probably people out there who think, oh yeah, I can just work out on my own, or I can do this on my own. And the answer to that is yes, but, and the big but is that when you have an actual trainer who is holding you accountable, first of all, I would never be so consistent in my workouts if it wasn't for being scheduled every week with you. And I don't think I would be anywhere near as strong or as flexible, or just my overall fitness, I don't think would be there without some professional training. So, and by the way, I feel this way about pretty much everything in life, and that's why I'm a spiritual mentor, is because I feel like people need help with their spirituality. They need help with their spiritual practices. It's a discipline,
Absolutely.
just like fitness is a discipline, and it's not something that you can just wake up one day and go, okay, I'm just going to do this all by myself for the rest of my life. We don't live in a vacuum, and we're not supposed to do everything by ourselves all the time.
Definitely not.
So,
Yeah, I mean, going back to the accountability thing, I have a lot of respect for you as the being that you are, and I feel that same respect from you to me. And that relationship is the importance of like, okay, we're gonna be here at this time. We are agreeing upon doing this work together, and then we're gonna help each other do that. And that's where, getting some expert guidance can really help, whether people are hiring you for a spiritual guidance session or a trainer. It's really the same concept of like, okay, we're going to show up because we have this goal and we're going to reach it together. And then you have an expert guiding you. Okay, this expert has done this for however many years, has made this amount of mistakes. They're going to give me the shortcuts that I might need. And I don't really like the word shortcuts, but you are taking a lot of, like potential failures out of the equation. Like when you're working with a professional, it's like you're
definitely.
not going to maybe get as hurt. Like I had to learn all those lessons the hard way because I
Mhm.
never had a trainer when I was going through the decade of experience that I grinded through. And it created a lot of dysfunction in my body, it created a lot of injuries in my body. And that was the fire that fueled me to learn how to train in a way that was injury preventative or resilience building in the body, because I had to go through all that hardship myself. And while I'm thankful for that, like it made me an expert in my field and it made me accomplished. I wouldn't want to have my clients go through all that because it just doesn't make any sense, you know?
I
And
appreciate that.
yeah, you guys have your own professions and your own focuses. And so it's like, you go do the things you're good at, I'll bring what I have to the table, and then we can help each other, get better at the things that we want to get better at. Because we don't have enough time in this life to become an expert at everything.
No.
But you are here on this earth for a certain purpose, right? I think you believe this, like you
Of
have
course.
a destiny. And so you focus on fulfilling your destiny and your purpose, and then you can bring in experts to help you towards the other avenues that you want to explore. And you have little shortcuts to get there, and that guidance.
Yes, and that's the other thing I want to just make a comment on is that there are levels of expertise. So not every trainer is created equally. And I have a couple of horror stories as well that I could share with you. And I won't go into too much detail, but I've had some personal trainers that I've been to who just didn't get me at all. They seemed like they were just pushing to the point of like, I don't even care like where your fitness level is at. I don't care how much you've done in the past or whatever, like you're going to keep up in my class or you're going to get out. I mean, kind of like a military, kind of
A
training.
lot of ego there.
And I felt like so much ego. It's like, what is wrong with you? It's like, are you just trying to show me that I'm just like so inferior to you? I mean, it just made me not ever want to go back to them. And of course I didn't. But the really good trainers, and this is how you'll identify them, is that they will not put you down for whatever level you're at, and they will just make you better. And they will push you, but not to the point of like injuring you. So, there's a fine line, I think, with that. And I'm just grateful that you seem to just innately know exactly like, yeah, you push me, but you don't push me to the point of like, I'm going to get hurt,
Yeah, and I used to do that stuff with myself, and I
Yeah.
learned through those lessons of like, oh, this is how you overtrain and how you hurt yourself. That's not actually what you do. And so it kind of goes back to our point of finding the balance. And like the homeostatic thing, okay, there's your baseline. Like, yeah, you want to introduce something that's stressful and maybe a bit assaultive, which could be a stimulus of a training session, but you don't want it to be so intense that it kills you.
Mhm.
It needs to be stressful enough to cause change, but not so stressful that it actually injures you. And so it is, you want to, if your comfort zone is here, you want to slowly expand the bubble in a controlled way. You don't want to just jump right into a crazy bubble. Like
Yeah.
if the first day you got on your skis, decided to go down a double black diamond, like
That
we all
would-
know that wouldn't have gone well, maybe, right?
No, that would have been a disaster.
But like, what did you
Yeah.
do? You started off maybe on the bunny slopes and then you got comfortable there, and
For
then
sure.
you made those little progressions. Maybe the bunny slope was a little uncomfortable at first, but then it allowed you to keep overreaching and striving for something a little bit different.
Yeah, and I would also challenge you all to pay attention to that in your own spiritual practice as well. Because if you're going to the guru who says that he knows everything and this is the only way to the path of the divine, I would run as far away as possible.
I'd be
because
skeptical of anyone saying
yeah,
that.
anybody who is saying that is simply that is the ego talking, and that is simply ridiculous. So, ultimately we are all divine, we are all pieces of the divine.
Absolutely.
And there is no one path to enlightenment. You know, there are many paths to, just like fitness, there are many paths to getting fit. There are many paths to ascension. So anybody who says that they have the one and only way, I would be very leery of that person. And ultimately, we have to find our own path and what works for us and what doesn't work for us. So I always tell people, you know, if this doesn't resonate with you, you know, good luck to you. Like, that's fine. Like, go find something that does resonate with you, you know, and the same goes with your fitness routine. But a lot of times we are coming from a perspective that is incomplete. And that's where a true expert like Walker can help you to give you a bigger, broader perspective. And I'm always in the vein of like, keep learning.
Yes.
You know, don't ever feel like you know everything, because none of us knows everything.
Yeah. None of us really know nothing.
Yeah, it's just,
I think
it's
that the real
completely insane.
experts, right? Like the expert's going to tell you they don't know anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then you remain open-minded. Like,
yeah,
look at all these options we have.
Yeah, we always have to be open-minded to learning something new, because things are going to be changing, right? So so that's the beauty of the progress of the human hero's journey, you know, the soul, the evolution of the soul. And I think fitness is a beautiful way to bridge your physical body and actually getting more in touch with your physical body to align yourself with your divine self. You know, if you're physically fit, you're going to be able to think more clearly. You're going to be able to process your emotions. You know, I mean, how many times have you've heard of the term runner's high?
Yeah.
You know, it's like there is something to be said about that. It's not just a figment of our imaginations. And so if you're struggling in your life, I would encourage you to find some kind of physical practice that you can do. And even if it's just at a very low level or very moderate level, this is why I love Qigong so much. You know, I trained in Qigong for 5 years with my trainer way back when I was first learning about energy healing and that sort of thing. And it's a very low, you know, impact, and
Beautiful practice.
Yeah, it's mostly about stretching and stuff like that. But it's also a very spiritual practice, because you do like walking meditation or standing meditation. And it was so funny how my Qigong teacher,
the chi too.
Yeah, the chi.
Mind to body awareness.
Yeah, it's all interconnected. So you know, that's the beautiful thing is you can start anywhere, and it's like a ripple effect, right? That's why you call it holistic fitness fusion, because it's all intertwined.
Yeah, it really is. It's one thing. It's kind of hard for us to like dissect things in our brain, so we always segregate. So we're like, oh, there's the muscular system, and then there's the fascial system, and the nervous system, and the circulatory system.
Yeah.
And those are all these like, you know, dissected systems that are separate, but in reality, it's just one organism. So anything you do is going to affect the entire organism, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, understanding how to harness your power, your chi, and, you know, bring focus to certain areas of your body or to your life is incredibly.
Yeah, so I want to also talk a little bit about nutrition, because you are definitely my nutrition expert. And I have changed my diet quite a bit over the last few years due to some of the things that I have learned about food and how they poison our food, essentially. I mean, it's somewhat terrifying, actually, how much food is really bad for us. And even food that we think is healthy for us, or it's even called a health food, you know, it's not always good for us. So can you talk a little bit about nutrition?
Oh God, there's a whole episode on its own.
Yeah, we'll probably bring you back for a whole other episode on that.
I love that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like to try to make it simple for people, because if we can start simply, then we're going to be more likely to adopt these things into our life. So eat real food
Yay.
is a good starting place. And
Definitely.
so what does that mean? It means just avoid, eliminate all of the processed stuff. So like if it comes in a bag or a box or all those things, there's likely going to be ingredients in there that are not serving you. So you should really try to source. They say about 80%, and I say they because this is just like some general consensus. I think you should try to get to more of 100% sourcing your diet from whole foods. So fruits, vegetables, healthy sources of meat and eggs and fish. That's typically where I try to get people to move towards. And until you're doing that, like I think doing the other stuff isn't necessarily going to help you very much, because like that's the easiest place to start. But yeah, the sourcing of your food is incredibly important. Like then you can start getting into that conversation of like, well, what is mono agriculture, or what is organically self-sustainably grown like fruits and vegetables. The mono agriculture is the stuff that's genetically modified, sprayed with the glyphosate, the stuff that, you know, the poison, so to speak, literally, that you're buying thinking you're making the right choice. And it's like, well, I'm eating all the fruits and vegetables, but it's like, yeah, but then you gotta buy the organic stuff too, which is like more expensive. And it's like, well, they said meat's good for you, and it's like, well, you got to buy the grass-fed organic meat because that cow is eating a healthy diet and was not fed corn and soy and pumped up with hormones and all of those things. So you got to avoid the factory farm stuff. So it's really it's so simple, and we all intuitively understand how to eat healthy. That's the beautiful thing about this, is you eat real food, you eat healthy food, you'll feel really good. You know, it is that simple. If you eat the factory farmed animal, that poor animal that was raised in a cage and fed a horrible diet and pumped with hormones, you'll get what that animal had in its life, you know. Same with vegetables and fruit. Like if you're eating stuff that was sprayed with those toxins, like that's going to be what you become. You are physically 100% created from the food that you eat. So that's kind of the only fact you need to know to understand the severity of it. Like, oh, the whole saying you are what you are what you eat is absolutely true. And so that's kind of the importance of it. Like that is how important it is.
It
really
is.
makes you.
It is. And it's, you know, when you think about all the people who end up with all these diseases, you know, with cancer and heart disease, and, you know, I mean, a lot of that is dietary. But again, it goes past that to like, why are you choosing these horrible foods for yourself in the first place? And so there's that emotional component as well. And that's where the spiritual healing comes forward. So it all works together. So the more you start to heal those emotions and your past lives and whatever your life lessons are in this lifetime, you're naturally going to start choosing foods that are more in alignment, more high vibration than what you were doing before. And you're also going to just be more like, you're going to be healthier too. So this is something that I've really noticed since moving to Sedona. I used to have a really bad diet. I had a habit of eating chips. You know, I was a chipaholic. I know. And we're not talking good chips either. We're talking like Cheetos and Doritos and like really.
I love that stuff. I don't eat it. But I want to make one really quick point. Just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy.
Yeah,
This is
that's true.
extremely hard.
It is. Yeah, for
You
sure.
got to overcome everything that you're talking about.
Yeah, but I'm really happy that now that I have chosen that just an overall better lifestyle, a more balanced lifestyle, I don't even go down the chip aisle anymore. You know, I'm not even tempted.
It doesn't serve you. Right?
No, it doesn't serve me at all.
It doesn't bring you to where you want to be.
Yeah.
But that took you repetition, and it took you maybe starting with stuff that was easier to start with, and then that kind of builds on itself, doesn't it? Like,
Yes,
you
it
start
does.
making the right choices, you learn from those choices, and then those choices come bigger choices, and then all of a sudden you're making way more better choices than you used to make. You probably will never get to a place. Why would you want to get to this place of making all of the right choices? That perfection, I don't think, really exists, because without those wrong choices, we still, we wouldn't learn the lessons. But going back to the whole nutrition thing, like, you got to start somewhere. And so be gentle to yourself. Like,
yeah, for sure. Don't beat yourself up if you have a, candy bar or whatever, I mean, that's not going to serve you. And you can always bless your food. You can always raise the vibration of whatever it is, even if it's really junky. And there is something to be said about that. So, if you put love into anything, it's going to raise its vibration. So that's maybe something that you could, maybe one of those life hacks you can do.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna be bad, and you have something that you absolutely have to eat, the least you can do is send it tons and tons of love and don't feel guilty over eating it.
Absolutely, because the worst thing you can do is actually feel bad about what you ate.
Yeah.
Like, I remember something that Deepak Chopra said that I retained. It was like, basically, like, the feelings of guilt that you might have surrounded like eating a bad meal is way worse than what the actual food is doing to you.
Yeah, definitely. So
Strongly to your point, like,
yeah,
don't be hard on yourself. Like, we're all humans and we all make plenty of mistakes, and
yeah.
we're all just doing our best.
So the bottom line is love everything that you're doing, love the whole process of it, and also choose better choices, so I mean, it's a progression.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The goal is not perfection, the goal is simply progression.
Yeah.
Just try to be a little bit better each time.
Yeah,
Learn from your last thing. The
exactly.
perfection, you can't be that hard on yourself. That's not going to serve you.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes it's a substitute kind of a thing too. Like you can, instead of eating chips, I love my popcorn, and I make popcorn at home. And so that's kind of like my little salty snack now.
And you're making a better choice.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like the perfect choice, but it's like,
yeah.
Well, what is that popcorn bringing you? Well, I love popcorn. It makes me happy. I look forward to it. Like, that in itself is a beautiful thing, right? So that shouldn't be ignored either. But then you made a conscious choice there of like, well, it's better than the chips, so I'll make that choice.
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't feel guilty about eating it. And I do that.
And you earn your popcorn.
Oh man, do I ever.
You work hard.
I do. I work really hard. I've been working really hard. So, all right. So to wrap up, why don't you tell the audience, how do you work with people? How can people sign up with you? What are some of the packages that you offer? Things like that.
Well, the easiest way to get in contact with me is to visit my website. It's holisticfitnessfusion.com. Maybe we can link it in the show notes.
Definitely.
That you'll have all the information there. You can book a free consultation with me. What we're going to do in that consultation, it's actually called a strategy session. We're basically going to talk about you, what your goals are, where you want to go, and then how I can be of service to you and reaching those. And there's a lot of options that we can consider, from in-person training sessions to completely online to hybrid style stuff. So I've developed quite a few courses to help people with their training through different programs and all of the above. So the goal is to work with anybody who wants to train. I'm not biased. I would love to work with anybody that feels called to do so, whether you're an elite level athlete or you've never stepped in the gym. We can make it happen for you.
Yeah, and I want to also just talk a little bit about, I'm going to give like a testimonial for Walker, because he works with some pretty tough cases. So one of your clients has an illness, and he has been working out with you for quite a number of years now. And so I just want you to talk a little bit about him because he's such an inspiration. I just want everybody to hear this story.
I think you're talking about Bob, who has Parkinson's.
Yes.
So yeah, Bob is just one of the most driven people I've ever met. And this is a classic example of how being uncomfortable is going to push you and to getting the results or the motivation that you might have, because he was diagnosed with Parkinson's and then he realized, well, okay, my neurologist said the best thing I can do is train and exercise. And so he just went all in. And now we train together 6 hours a week. That's 3 2-hour sessions. That's a lot of work if you don't know.
That is a ton of work.
And he shows up, he is psyched every time. He listens to everything I tell him, and he just puts his head down and does it. And there's quite a bit of science supporting that exercise is the best thing you can do for neural degeneration, which is Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia, amongst some other diseases. But it is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful things you can do to take ownership of your health. It can affect pretty much everything in your body in a positive way when done consistently and when done properly.
That's right. So if you want to stay out of the hospital and you want to be off the drugs, this is in my opinion, the best way to do it. So
you gotta have the spirituality to support it too.
That's right. It all ties together. Yeah. So everybody, I would encourage you to think about a personal trainer. Definitely check out Walker's stuff. He is absolutely the top-notch trainer, in my opinion. And I'm not just saying that. I've worked out with a lot of trainers over the years. And I'm so happy that I met Walker after moving to Sedona. So thank you for being in my life and making me fit.
So happy to be here. I always look forward to coming to see you and Pat.
Yeah. So
you're always welcoming me into your home and giving me amazing juices, and just the hospitality is endless. And then, giving me opportunities to share what I know or our experiences together on platforms like this. So thank you, everybody.
Yes. Thanks for coming today. And we encourage you to look at your life ascended and discover your divine nature every day. So I can't wait to come back again next week, and we'll have an all new show for you. And thank you so much for coming today. And I wish you all infinite abundance. Thanks for joining us on Life Ascended, where you can discover your divine potential every day. Please show your support by tuning in, following, sharing your comments, and inviting others to listen. Take it further by visiting Ascension17.com for deeper spiritual growth, guidance, programs, and products.